Today I have a very special guest, EB, and we'll be talking about virtual studio technology, or VST, in comparison to in-home digital pianos. Stick around, lots of interesting points that we're going to make, and it might help you decide which one might be right for you. Hi, this is Patrick Marr.
Hey, I'm EB.
We're here at Alamo Music here in San Antonio, Texas. EB came and visited us from our Kauai Piano Gallery up in Kansas City. If you're in the area, make sure you go say hello. It's in the Leawood area of Kansas.
Correct.
I guess Leawood's in Kansas, so
it is.
There's only one. But Kansas City, kind of goes into both. Today we have a piano fact. So we are talking about digital pianos and VSTs today. So I was like, okay, what would be a cool piano fact to kind of tie in here? And so I was like, okay, first digital piano. But there's some like the definition of digital piano and how people perceive it is a little bit different. So, like a lot of people will say, and it's cool as we have a Yamaha DX1 in the basement
here.
So
I've been told.
Only 140 of them made. It was Yamaha's FM synthesis, which was groundbreaking, a digital synthesis that could create sound and sound really cool. But the DX7 was immensely popular.
Yeah.
And the DX1 was, a combination of DX7s that was its own big, beautiful thing. But that same technology, that FM synthesis, was put in something called, I believe it's a YP, a Yamaha Piano 40. And some people will credit that as one of the first digital pianos. Some people say, but that's really just a synthesis of, what had already existed in the DX line. So some people point to Kurzweil. And there was, a form of sampling taken at that point.
Got it.
With limited, bandwidth for recording, there's just memory was expensive and not able to keep up. So it was very limited sampling of every note, and really, they were stretching one note to make it to fire off. But some say that was the first digital piano.
Gotcha.
And then even some further will say, well, Roland did a whole new synthesis based on sound design of a piano, and that was some of this modeling technology that was brought into in the RD1000 was kind of like it's right in the mid 80s. So we're looking at like 1980 to 1985. There's a window of the digital piano was invented, kind of instead of the electric piano being the predecessor of how we amplify something that has keys that plays like a piano, like the CP70 behind us. It actually took that next step, and it wasn't an electric piano, it was an electronic piano, a digital piano with digital sounds. So I think that ties in well because we are going to be talking about VSTs, which you know a lot about, and I know very little about.
You're being overly generous, but I'll take it.
But so there, and there is this is something that I've heard, especially from, for lack of a better term, entertainers or teachers or these really high-level pianists who want to see the most modern thing that piano has to offer as far as tools in the toolbox. VST, I had a customer here who told me verbatim that he would never play another acoustic grand, or he'd never own another acoustic grand. He'd play them, but he'd never own another acoustic grand because his VST was good enough. And the VST that he was using was Pianotech, and he had this really nice Austrian-made Action that was like, this is the guy who did, I think, I might be misquoting here, but the guy who built Bosendorfer Actions decided to make a controller with and so that he was like, I have enough. But later he did buy a piano, so I know that it's as good until it's not as good. And so the VST is virtual studio technology. We'll be talking about that, but we'll also be kind of comparing it to the other side, which is these very high-level piano engines that you get and you see from Kauai, that you see from Yamaha, that you see from Roland, and tons of money in research and development go into creating these beautiful, and Kauai calls it, piano renderings, and these piano engines that Yamaha has, and Roland has their modeling system. And so there's this great technology being poured in and continuously innovated. And then there's the other side, which is VST. So for the person who's never heard of a VST, can you give us an explanation?
Sure. So basically, if you're working with a VST that is a piano generated sound, it's usually a library of anywhere from a gig or 2 gigabytes to 30 to 40 to 50 gigabytes worth of audio recording, essentially. Audio recordings that are designed to, when combined with very complicated algorithms, an overall piano sound. One note at a time, different blends, but essentially at the end of the day, you've got a giant library of piano sounds that when combined correctly by playing on the keyboard and using their fancy algorithms, make it sound just like a piano.
And so it's based off of a lot of calculation, right, and a lot of modeling.
Yes.
I know the piano tech, which we were talking about, is like the one that's known for being straight modeling. And so me and Ted did a video on sampling versus modeling. But
oh, cool.
But kind of the idea of starting with a sound source versus creating a sound source.
Right.
And so sampling, is still the primary way that a lot of manufacturers will say is the best way to get a sound.
Exactly.
And so they, Kawai and Yamaha will take their best piano, they'll mic it up in the studio, and they'll figure out different ways to record it at different velocities, at different lengths, and they will come up with the best formulas they can to get you their piano sampled into your digital piano or into the digital sound. And they usually keep their newest and greatest ones on their most expensive models, and then it trickles down. An example would be the competition grand that Kawai just released, and we're gonna actually listen to it here in just a second because it's a cool piano sound. But EB will play for us. It's the competition grand from Kawai. It's their SKEX, the Shigeru Kawai, and instead of miking it up like they've done in the past, as in the classic sound, the classic rendering is mics on the strings and on the plate and soundboard, and then underneath. This competition grand takes the perspective of the player, sitting in front, and that's something that VSTs do as well. Right? You're able to
Very
change
much so, yes.
where you're hearing it from.
Either the audience perspective usually, or the performer perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can even place it where it's in between. It just depends on what kind of reverb, what kind of spatial acoustics that they're using to emulate.
And so, what drew you to VSTs?
Easily the cost factor and the flexibility, because when you have a great keyboard, a lot of times it also comes with great sounds until they aren't, as you said earlier, because technology is always evolving. So something you maybe bought in the early teens or early aughts that maybe has great action, but the sounds are a little dated, right? It's just like a lot of things where the hardware can still function well, but you need to be able to upgrade the software, right? And so a VST is basically just upgrading your software and being able to make an even better piano sound work. Now, the reason that I use VSTs a lot is because I also live in a digital realm with so much of the things that I create in terms of content. I do record in my studio, and so I'm doing a lot of recording that can be very easily streamlined and knocked out with having set up a whole bunch of microphones on a grand piano. I can just play and generate great sound that's already in the computer itself, be able to mix it, master it, and send it, as well as when I'm working with things for streaming, with my live streaming. I can use that VST inside to be able to send that signal that already exists within my streaming software. Very simple.
Okay, very cool. And when you hear your the best of the best VSTs that you've heard, and then go and play a Yamaha with their CFX or the Bosendorfer sample or the Kawai. We'll listen to the Kawai SKEX here in a second. But when you hear those, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? I know Kawai has attacked it from, hey, we have our virtual artisan, capabilities where we're able to make functional changes to our piano rendering, where you can change the damper resonance, and you can change. There's 19 parameters. You can change a whole bunch of stuff within the piano sample. But is that encased in the unit like a CA901? Is that similar to what the VST is offering?
Yes. And in fact, I think Kawai is so innovative with how they approach their hardware, whether it's a piano, whether it's a digital piano or a hybrid. They're trying to do the things that people who buy VSTs and have done for many years are lauding as to why they buy VSTs, because they have such control over every nuance of sound that this VST creates. So if you want to increase the amount of noise you would hear because of how loud you hit the key, not just like the actual note, but the actual noise that hits the blink, just of that click. Right?
The mechanical click,
yeah. The noise that the pedal makes, not the actual pedal, but just pressing up and down, you can hear that more or less. Now Kawai, because that adds authenticity, the realism to the sound of the piano. These are things that you hear in a recording, right?
Yeah.
And so now Kawai is like, sure, we can do that too.
Yeah. No, and it's I've heard frustrations that like, oh, why don't they make it available on a VST? And like, why is it locked in the box? It's like, and I think kind of answers its own question, because the box is what they sell, and so
right.
But it's interesting that they have taken that approach and seen how people, because I've seen lots of people, like, again, that customer who was he was dead set that like, piano tech's all I need. I have a great controller. And then he bought himself a Bluthner, a real nice Bluthner that he found. But it was just, and so like, I guess the other side of this is going to be acoustic. Like the acoustic instrument. Do you ever see a world where it could be replaced? I mean, this is like the VR question. It's like virtual reality. Like when I put on the headset, and I do it. Definitely, like I feel different. The gaming experience is different, but I don't feel like I'm like in this place. I feel like I've put on a headset and I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's the same as to why I use. So I have a VPC-1 in my studio, which is a performance control. It makes no sound on its own. It's built so that it literally only can engage with VSTs. Right? It has no built-in sounds to itself. Then you have something like an MP11 SE, which has all the exact same action, but also has amazing world-class sounds that have been sampled and have been generated that you can use to do all those different things with. Then I have a Novus 10S, which is an acoustic digital grand hybrid that's also made by Kawai. And the reason that that's important is because it's in my live stage where I'm live streaming and I'm collaborating, not just with myself, I'm collaborating with other musicians, right? And so in addition to myself performing and being able to do what I do and hearing myself through headphones, these other musicians hear what is special about the Novus 10S. You've got the ability to generate a piano sound live. So if I was playing it here, you would think, oh, someone's playing a piano, not a digitally sounding thing, because what they've done, rather than listening to something in stereo, which is affected, it sounds like, oh, it's a recorded sound. They've thrown, 9, 12 different speakers.
And they've placed them out.
Yeah, and designed it so it is emulating what the actual
space.
It's the technology. Tell me, you know more about that.
Well, I just like, I think that is one of the things that you do lose when you're trying to replicate or play something just through headphones, or like it's you always draw the line somewhere. It's like, and it's like we get to the level where we're hearing the pedal noise and we're hearing the click of the keys. But the way we're actually listening to it, or how we're reproducing it, is not doing justice to the sound, or it can't be in the space like an acoustic piano.
Right.
So let's take a break. I want to hear the competition grand again. This is from the player's perspective, which is just cool. That's one of those very brilliant ideas where it's like, hey, we always mic it up for the audience perspective. What if we mic'd it up for the player? Like because you're sitting there in front of your keys. What is it going to sound like to you sitting there in front of the 9-foot piano? So let's take a listen to EB playing the CA901. We're going to listen to the competition grand.
Awesome.
That was wonderful playing. Thank you for playing that. What are the differences to you as a player when you're sitting on your VPC1 playing, the sample of your choice? What's the difference in that perspective to sitting in front of a digital instrument like the CA901?
Yeah. So here's the bottom line is that they both are great. And it's really a matter of what you're trying to accomplish and why, right? And so when it comes to VSTs, it's almost impossible to beat the overall quality and ease of function that you're going to find using a VST for recording purposes and for ease of use when you're working in the box. And what that means is whenever you're doing almost everything from a PC generated standpoint, right? So if a PC is in your chain, in your signal flow, almost always the easiest way is to already have the software being within that. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're running a keyboard into it as well as in the mix, right? It's just in terms of overall workflow, in terms of processing, generally speaking, you're going to be able to reach absolute top shelf quality faster, easier, and consistently with the software.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to being able to perform live, that is absolutely, in my opinion, where the built-in sounds shine. Right?
Yeah.
When you've got a keyboard that can crush, and you can just walk up to it, flip it. I play more, I practice more because I can walk down now with my Novus and be able to flip the switch and turn on, and I feel like I'm practicing on a real piano.
Something Ted always talks about is the little small things like the vibration of the keys with the speakers, the vibration of the pedal, the things that you get from when you're playing an acoustic instrument. They've really gone into consideration when building these very high-level hybrid digitals or the digital in-home digitals like the CA series.
Yep.
But it's all intentionally done. And it's like everything is trying to the ergonomics of the instrument, all that stuff. So like how you're sitting, how you're playing, and then how you're receiving it as the player or hearing it.
And your audience, your family, your friends, the people who are listening to you. I'll flip on a switch, and you can do this with any of the CA lines as well. Be able to hook Bluetooth or be able to hit a play and record something, and you can walk around the house, and it sounds like a piano is playing in your house. That's why you have these instruments that are modeled that, because it's not just for you. You're playing for an audience, and when you can do that live, it's really hard to beat that series and the experience that both you get and the feedback that you're getting, not just from audibly, but also, like you said, that tactile response that's coming back to you with the vibrations and whatnot, and also for your audience, being able to experience it wherever they may be in the home, or maybe they be in the church, whatever the context is.
Okay, well, very cool. We'll finish up with one last question. What do you see as the limitations, both maybe on the VST side specifically, but limitations there? I think we talked about limitations on fully, like a sold unit. 10 years in the future, we don't know what the new technology is going to be, so we don't know if it's going to be out of date. But history will tell us it will be out of date.
Right.
And so VSTs, what do you see as limitations?
Well, I think in one sense they both have the same limitation. They're not actual pianos.
Yeah,
right.
That's
so
true.
If what you're trying to do is create an acoustic piano sound with something other than actually just playing acoustic piano, you'll never have, because it's always going to be apples and oranges to some degree, right? That being said, there are certain things that are specific to the limitations. One of the things that you see the most limitations in both models is the decay factor. So when you play a note, how long it can sustain and decay that general fade off, right? While being able to still stay authentically true with how things work in terms of that modeling. When it comes to VSTs, it's always processing power. Right, it's always how much CPU do I have to dedicate to make this amazing sound. Storage is becoming cheaper and cheaper. So even if you have 100 gigs or 500 gigs, people find a way. It's always about the bottleneck that you're running through that CPU to make it as authentic. So the more authentic you are, it's just you're going to need a bigger rig.
To me, it's just it's so interesting because then you get into like the acoustics of, or the medium of how you're perceiving it, and so like. How nice of studio monitors do you need, or how nice of
and headphones,
like what is the cutoff there, and what are you losing in that flow?
That's a huge debate in the recording world in general. Like we're spending millions of dollars on a product to make the absolute best quality sound to listen to it on earbuds, to AirPods, right? So in terms of exactly, where is the weakest point in your signal chain?
Yeah, and just I'm sure there's definitely I was looking at B&W or whatever that audio, and it's like. You can buy speakers for $100,000 to a set of
Right,
speakers for
right.
$100,000.
I mean, you know.
And you can be
There
like,
you go.
that's pretty good, I guess. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's just when playing a piano, there's a lot going on. An acoustic piano, the strings are resonating, the soundboard's resonating, the whole body's resonating. And
So you could spend $100,000 on really great speakers, or just buy yourself a Shigeru. How about that?
You can buy yourself a nice piano. But EB, thank you again for answering some of these questions. It was a good time talking about VSTs. Again, I think that the takeaway for me is like if your focus is recording and trying to live stream or trying to get the best. Yeah, I think you said it right. The signal flow. If the signal flow includes a computer, a VST is very helpful and can be a strong force to play with. And then from a player's perspective, I think enjoyability of being able to turn something on and start playing and it feel like a piano and sound like a piano. It's hard to get, I would say, that full feeling without spending a lot of time getting it going on your VST.
Exactly.
Thank you for being here with me today. EB coming down from our Kansas City store, Kauai Piano Gallery. Make sure you guys check it out up there if you are in the area. I'm Patrick Marr. I'm here in Texas at our San Antonio location, Alamo Music. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We'll bring you more great videos, and I think Ted and EB are going to do some videos as well. So make sure you're subscribed because those will be great content, and we will see you next time.